Time now for Marriage Builders, building marriages to last a lifetime. Also online at marriagebuilders.com. Now, here's Joyce Harley and Dr. Bill Harley.
Good day to you. Glad you could join us for Marriage Builders Radio. Well, during this hour, we'll be talking marriage and addressing questions that you have sent our way. And joining us now for this discussion is my husband, Dr. Bill Harley, licensed clinical psychologist and best-selling author on marriage. Well, we talk marriage. We call ourselves Marriage Builders. But let's not assume we all mean the same thing when we say the word marriage.
A lot of different theories.
Yes. So I thought it might be a good idea just to review for some and maybe inform for the first time Marriage Builder's definition of marriage. And this is the definition that you have come up with. Mm-hmm. So let me read what you have given me as far as the definition goes. You said marriage is a relationship of extraordinary care when you make each other happy, avoid making each other unhappy, and you make all your decisions together. When you marry, you promise to do these things for each other. You are putting each other first and never letting anyone or anything come between you.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, marriage is a bonding of two people together. In the Bible, it talks about a marriage, two becoming one. And so a man and a woman join together in life to become a different entity entirely. And so my perspective on marriage is marriage. You know, when you talk about a marriage of metals, for example, what you're doing is you're blending the metals. Bronze is a blending of copper and
I was hoping you'd remember because I have no idea where you're going. Yes.
Copper and, what is it?
And something
lead?
Else.
I don't know. I can't remember. But anyway, it's a blending of two metals, okay? And with a lot of the metals we use today
Wait. I hear the listeners. They're yelling
no,
into
it's not lead. It's something else.
They're yelling into their smartphones to help you out. Yes. Okay. Anyway. We'll go on. That's not why we're here to be telling you what that copper is, but nevertheless, that's funny. It's funny.
So the basic idea, though, is that marriage is a blending of two people. And you have two different people, two entirely different people.
It's a lovely idea. Lovely idea. But some people would be listening there say, a blending? I have kept my identity. I am who I am, and I am married. And the idea of my losing my identity become a third product. You know, you take these two metals and you make it a third product. Mm-hmm. I want to keep my own identity, and yet I want to be married. What do you say to those people?
I think it's tin. I think it's.
Are you still thinking about
copper and tin?
Listen, I tell you what. During the break, you can look it up. Let's not dwell on that right now.
Yeah, basically, I think that the idea of two becoming one means that I do lose something in the transaction. First of all, I lose a certain amount of personal freedom. I lose what I want to do if it conflicts with something that would hurt you. In other words, something that I would like to do for me that would be good for me, but if it would hurt you, I lose the freedom to do that. So when I marry you with the assumption that to some extent I'll be a different person. I will be a person who is interested in your welfare, who has empathy for you, and will limit the things that I do to conform to your needs, and then you do the same for me.
Right.
So marriage is a relationship of mutual extraordinary care. See, that's the word mutual is very important in that definition. Mutual extraordinary care, which means that a man and a woman both do the same thing. They both give up some of their personal freedom to accommodate the needs and interests of the person they marry.
When you put it, giving up some of your personal freedom, when we went into a marriage, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners will say, I didn't feel like I gave up anything. I felt like I gained. I gained insight. I gained perspective. I gained somebody to do things with all the time. It's interesting. I mean, you can. Some people would say I lost. Others would say I gained.
Yeah.
What is the difference between those two perspectives?
Well, again, every transaction is a matter of losing something to gain something. Every time I buy something at the grocery store, I'm handing over money that I've earned that I'm never going to see again because I'm buying something that I need. And the question is, am I losing something in the transaction? Yes. But you're doing it to gain something in return. So in marriage, I lose some of my identity to gain identity, that will make me a better person and a happier person. So the point that I often make to people is that whatever you lose isn't worth what you gain in a marital relationship where two people care about each other.
Now, say that again.
So what you lose in a marital relationship, you lose some of your personal identity. You gain in a way that makes you a better person. It makes you a wiser person. It turns you into a new entity that is better than what you had before.
But your friends will still recognize you.
Right.
You're not going to change that
much. Have the same hair color. Right.
Exactly. Okay, well, let's talk about this, where you make each other happy. Okay? And, of course, that ties in with the emotional needs concept.
Right.
Avoid making each other unhappy, which means avoiding love busters, the things that make your spouse unhappy. And you make all your decisions together. Those are the 3 points. And, of course, that third one is the policy of joint agreement.
Right.
And then you said when you marry, you promise to do these things for each other. You're putting each other first and never letting anyone or anything come between you. And I think the ultimate love buster is when you let someone come between you through infidelity.
Exactly. Yeah. And, of course, that's something you promise at the time that you're married.
Forsaking all others.
Right. Interestingly enough, for more than 50% of all marriages, people break that promise. But they break more than just that promise. I mean, my argument has always been that infidelity is the most egregious form of a love buster, that you are hurting the person in the worst way possible. But I would imagine that people that have affairs are doing a lot of that sort of thing in other areas as well. And they're not really going about making each other happy the way they should, and they certainly aren't making their decisions together. So you could argue that an affair actually represents a possible culmination of a failure to understand what marriage is all about in the most basic ways.
Is this definition found on the website in any place? If it's not, it should.
It should be, yeah. As a matter of fact, I've even thought about having a new basic concept. The new basic concept would be the definition of marriage.
Oh, I like that.
I start my basic concepts with a love bank because I want people to be in love with each other, and so all my basic concepts have to do with romantic love. But I'm rewriting his needs, her needs, with that definition in mind, so that in the new His Needs, Her Needs book, you're going to see that definition right out of the box.
Of marriage.
Right. Marriage is a relationship of extraordinary
I think it should be
care.
done on the website as well.
Yeah.
I like that idea to start it off so that when people, first of all, it sets the scene for emotional needs, for love busters, for the policy of joint agreement, and the idea of the care that you're giving to a spouse. No, I like that idea. I wrote it down so we won't forget it. Okay?
All right.
Very good. Now you're going to look up what copper is during the break?
I'm pretty sure.
Can you do it?
I'm sure.
Can you do it in a minute?
Copper and tin. I'm almost positive.
Well,
now that I think about it, but I haven't looked it up yet. I will.
We'll try to confirm that throughout this hour. Okay. When we come back, we're going to be looking at emails that you have sent our way that fall under these categories that we just talked about: not meeting emotional needs, love busters, and the policy of joint agreement. So we'll be back with more good discussion on today's Marriage Builders Radio. Join the thousands of couples who have learned step by step how to experience a meaningful and fulfilling love relationship. They did this by completing Dr. Harley's online seminar and home study courses, His Needs, Her Needs, and Love Busters. Here's how it works. You'll begin by watching an online seminar where Dr. Harley will help you identify the problems you face in your marriage. Then, the home study courses will show you how to solve those marital problems in a systematic way. Go to marriagebuilders.com homepage and click the tab Courses, Seminar, and Accountability. Look for program number 2 for a description of the seminar and the courses. Then follow the instructions on that page to place your order. Start the program the day the package arrives. And if you're not completely satisfied, send it back to us within 30 days, and you'll receive a full refund, including shipping charges. Restore passion to your marriage. Order today. You have nothing to lose and everything to gain. Welcome back to Marriage Builders Chemistry class. I don't know if it falls under chemistry, but geological class or whatever. Okay, copper is?
Yes, it's bronze is what we're defining.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right. Bronze is copper and about 12% tin.
Oh, it was bronze. See, that's what I was going for copper.
No, copper
that's funny.
is its own mineral.
I forgot the question.
Yep, its own metal. But the basic idea is that it makes it harder,
So that you were correct on tin.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
and a lot of in modern bronze, there are a lot of other metals that are added to it.
But nevertheless, it was bronze we were looking for. No
right.
wonder I couldn't find it during the break.
In the Bronze Age, it was bronze and tin. Or it was copper and tin.
See, that's why I'm confused.
The marriage of two minerals.
So you want a bronze marriage is
metals.
What you want. You want a bronze marriage. Right. Okay, gotcha. All right.
Stronger. And by the way, it's
very strong. Yes.
It's a good analogy because bronze is stronger. See, it's a stronger metal and more useful metal than either copper or tin. See, I mean, that's the whole idea. The Bronze Age brought in a metal that actually enhanced the use of what had been copper. And so this is what marriage does, is it enhances both the husband and the wife.
Very good. All right. Well, now we're going to continue on with the emails that you have sent us. And I sort of organized it under the categories of what we've just been talking about, how you want to meet the emotional needs of your spouse, and you want to avoid the love busters, and you want to make your decisions together using the policy of joint agreement. We're going to start with the category of emotional needs. Jane is writing us, and she says, my husband wants sex every morning at 6 a.m. You say we are supposed to meet each other's emotional needs. So, am I supposed to be there to fulfill this need? Do I have to meet his emotional need in a way he wants it met and I don't?
Yeah, and again, you have to look at the concept of mutuality in the definition. Marriage is a relationship of mutual extraordinary care. And the mutuality is found in every aspect of these three areas of caring: the meeting of needs, the avoiding the protection, avoiding hurting each other, and the way in which we make decisions. Mutuality is a very important point. So, in the meeting of emotional needs, the way the emotional need is met has to be mutually enjoyable. Now, if her husband says that he wants sex every morning at 6 o'clock, all she has to do as a mutual partner is say, I could do that some mornings at 6 o'clock, depends what kind of a mood I'm in.
Or what my schedule is.
Or my schedule is, but I guarantee you 100% you're not going to get sex every morning at 6 o'clock for the rest of our married life. And what we can do is we can negotiate on how that is going to be met. And I do want to meet your emotional need for sex, don't get me wrong. But at the same time, I want to do it in a way that is enjoyable for me because we have a mutually caring relationship. And so you care about me as much as I care about you, right? So you wouldn't want me having sex with you at 6 o'clock in the morning if it was something I didn't want to do, right? Because you care about me? Good. Because we will then not have sex 6 o'clock in the morning.
I'm hearing him say, yes. Okay, all right. So then, once again, this is great to point out the fact that in meeting the emotional needs of your spouse, it has to be done in a way that you enjoy it as well.
Right.
You're not just meeting a responsibility.
Right.
You are engaging in something that they want, but you enjoy giving.
Yeah, and each emotional need, the mutuality characteristic is something that there are specific issues that I raise. For example, with affection, a lot of times a person will say that, I'm just not the affectionate type. I just don't do that kind of thing. I wouldn't enjoy being affectionate no matter what I did. And I would point out to them that the change of a new habit often seems awkward. And maybe you have never learned to be affectionate. Maybe you've never expressed your affection. So what I do with affection is I say, I just want you to do affectionate things with your spouse for 2 or 3 weeks. And you might find it awkward. You might not be something, you say mutuality thing isn't exactly working for me because I don't really enjoy it. But at the same time, I think that you can work through that part of the problem so that eventually you do enjoy it.
But you're not saying do something you hate.
You don't hate it, no.
Right. It's something that maybe feels awkward.
Right.
It doesn't feel natural. And you're saying give it some time, but do it. And then eventually it will become something that you don't even think about when you're doing it.
Yeah. And each emotional need has its issues. In other words, how do we make the meeting of each of these 10 emotional needs mutually enjoyable and honest? See, I mean, for affection, for example, if I were to ask a husband to be more affectionate to his wife, and he says, well, I don't really care about her. I don't want to. I'm in this marriage basically because for the kids, and I don't care about her one single bit. I would not encourage him to meet her emotional need for affection, because affection has to be an expression of care from the heart. Now, the man that I will work with on affection is somebody who says, I do care about my spouse. She's always telling me I don't care about her, but I do care about her. I said, well, maybe one of the reasons that she thinks you don't care about her is you're not expressing your care in the form of affection. Okay, he says, well, what do I have to do? Well, you have to start engaging in acts of affection, symbols of affection. And then what that does is it reminds her that you care about her. This is one of the points that I've often made with people, and that is that women especially want to know they are being cared for by their husband, and they have to be reminded of it. And this is what affection does. Affection is a reminder of his care for her. And he might use the argument, I've done all these things for her. Why doesn't she think I care about her after all these things I've done for her?
After all, I hugged her yesterday. Isn't that enough?
Or I earn a living, and
yeah.
I'm a good father. Doesn't she care about? Doesn't she see that I do this because I care about her? Well, symbols of affection, symbols of care, being affectionate, reminds her throughout the day that you care about her. You hug her, you kiss her, you hold your hand, and he says, well, why does she have to be reminded? Well, I don't know. We could get into the physiology of affection, and understand the parts of the brain that enjoy that kind of thing. All I know is that many women, if not most women, want to be reminded that they're cared for, and affection is one of the best ways of doing that.
Amen. Preach it, brother. But the guy who said, I'm just in the marriage for the kids' sake, where do you start with him?
I would say we're not going to work on affection just yet.
No. What do you work on for the first thing?
What I work on is an understanding of what marriage is, first of all, and that if he is going to be married, this is something that he has to do. He has to get to a point where he understands that his wife has to be number one in his life. He has to show care for her if he wants to be married to her. And if he says, well, I just don't care about her, I would try to talk him into caring for her. I mean, I do that. I encourage people to care for each other who don't care. And that's part of my job as a marriage counselor.
All right. When we come back, we're going to continue on this theme, and we're going to get into the area of love busters. Avoid making each other unhappy. And we'll hear what you, our listeners, are asking about in that topic. So stay with us on today's Marriage Builders Radio. Do you and your spouse know what to do, but just can't get yourselves to do it? If motivation is your problem, try the Marriage Builders online program. It comes complete with an accountability coach to help motivate you every step of the way. First, you view the online seminar, where Dr. Harley will explain his basic concepts and help you identify and organize your problems so you can resolve them in a systematic way. Then, your accountability coach will guide you through the solutions to those problems as you complete Dr. Harley's home study courses, His Needs, Her Needs, and Love Busters. Your coach will communicate with you throughout the program by email and telephone whenever you have questions or need encouragement, and your progress will be evaluated by your coach. For more information about the Marriage Builders online program, click the tab Courses, Seminar, and Accountability, and then look for program number 3 for a complete description. Restore passion to your marriage. Register today. Welcome back to Marriage Builders Radio. Well, you often hear me say, email us, mbradio@marriagebuilders.com, with concerns you may have in your marriage or concerns you might inquire about for a friend. Well, that's what's happening right now. Karen is inquiring about something for a friend. She says, sadly, a good friend sent me a long text yesterday. She's been married 25 years. She has researched and for sure determined her husband has a terrible addiction to pornography. She is already separated from him. And then Karen goes on to say, I'm going to tell her about your radio show, books, and website. Do you suggest your book, Surviving an Affair? And what articles on the website would be helpful for her situation? I won't pressure her, but I do want to share your resources. Well, first of all, Karen, thank you so much for inquiring for your friend. And I love that last phrase, I won't pressure her. Because all you can do is offer to somebody answers, and it's up to them whether they take them or not.
Yeah.
But we will provide answers and give some ideas. I think, first of all, you would agree, I don't know, separation with him, perhaps other things are going on?
I know of a couple that have just recently divorced because of pornography. I mean, that was the issue, was pornography. And she knew about his pornography. He would not give it up.
Yeah,
she knew about his pornography when they were first married, and she almost ended the marriage because of it then. Basically, she would catch him once in a while with pornography, and then finally, the last time she caught him using pornography again, she pulled the plug and got a divorce. A lot of women consider pornography to be the same as infidelity. It's a form of infidelity. Mm-hmm. Now, it falls under the category of making your wife unhappy, making your spouse unhappy.
It's a love buster.
So what you have to understand about pornography is it's one of the worst ways of protecting your spouse, of avoiding protecting your spouse. It's one of the worst ways of hurting your spouse. So if extraordinary care, mutual extraordinary care, is that I'm going to meet your emotional needs and I'm going to avoid hurting you, the last thing in the world I would want to do is have an affair or watch pornography. Watch pornography, because pornography would hurt you. Why does it hurt you? Because you see this as a challenge to our blended marriage. Our blended marriage, basically, we have exclusive sexual agreement here that we will not have sex outside of marriage.
Well, the term forsaking all others.
Right.
And that means visually forsaking all others in a lustful fashion.
Right.
She says, what articles on the website would be helpful for her situation? They've just separated. She just left him. So I'm reminded of your article, I just left my spouse, now what? Right? Would that be a good
and
article?
Also, I have an article called "The Scourge of Pornography."
Okay,
and I have basically we've addressed quite a bit. If you use the search engine we use on our website, you'll see that there's a lot I've written on the topic of pornography. I warn people that if pornography is such a problem for you that you can't seem to resist it, I would not use the computer or your smartphone except under supervision. Now, some people have argued that that's just way too extreme. I wrote an article once for Wall Street Journal. They asked me to write an article on pornography. So I wrote an article on Wall Street Journal, and I said that you treat pornography the same way you do any addiction, and that is you have to separate yourself from the source of the addiction. So in the case of an alcoholic, you avoid bars. You don't buy any alcoholic beverage. You keep the house free of all of that. And you don't have parties with people who drink. Your friends don't drink. When you go out to dinner, you don't drink. In other words, you create an environment where you're not going to be tempted. And so in the case of pornography, in many cases, I have suggested that the use of the internet would be under supervision, and so to avoid that pornography. Well, they wouldn't print it because they thought that was too unrealistic.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So the point I'm making is that, well, in our culture that we live in right now, that a lot of people have an attitude toward pornography that it's just one of those things that people sort of have to get used to.
Oh, goodness.
But I am a witness to the fact that there are a whole host of people out there, mostly women, who just can't get used to it. I mean, it's kind of like getting used to your spouse having an affair.
Well, those who have been engaged in pornography and have stopped the addiction, what have they done to be successful?
Well, again, they have agreed to accountability. They've agreed to.
Is this what programs for sexual addictions are all about? Accountability?
Yes, they all have various aspects of accountability, and so if a person has an addiction to anything, what we've found is that having an accountability partner is a big deal, is very important in their recovery.
So in her separating, she should then say, he has to get help regarding this, and she has to see proof that he is seeking help.
Well, there are various levels of this. I would say that in the case of this one woman that recently got a divorce, her husband actually had been in a group to help him with pornography, and then he went ahead and used pornography anyway. Right. So I think that there are situations where some people don't need any up. They say, you don't want me to watch pornography. It's a done deal. You never have to worry about me again.
Well, it says here that he has a terrible addiction to pornography. Is how it was worded here. So it sounds like he probably could use outside help and encouragement.
So she should be able to look at his history on the internet. In other words, she looked at the history section. He should not erase any history. She should be able to look at the history on his cell phone. Where has he gone? What has he viewed? And the basic idea is that, first of all, she could be holding him accountable. That's one way of doing it. But then he could also have an accountability partner. Many churches have that kind of a situation set up for people. In this case, it could very well be it is intentional, and it is something he's unwilling to change.
And that's why she left.
And that's why she should leave.
Okay.
I agree with
So
her.
she's already left, and I have a few questions on her behalf on the other side.
Right.
So we'll take those. So stay with us for more Marriage Builders Radio. Would you like your spouse to hear what you just heard on Marriage Builders Radio? Or would you like to hear past broadcasts on topics of special interest to you? We are now offering unlimited downloads of over 5,000 Marriage Builders radio segments that you can listen to as often as you like. All advertisements and musical spacing has been eliminated, so you hear only the segment itself. There are 3 ways to find the segments you want to hear. They're identified by the original date of the broadcast, by the primary topic of discussion, and by a brief description of the segment, including the caller's question. By using our search engine, you can identify segments that are of interest to you. Unlimited downloads of over 5,000 Marriage Builders radio segments. Take advantage of this offering. To download Marriage Builders segments of your choice, go to Radio Archives on the marriagebuilders.com website, and everything will be explained to you. That's Radio Archives at marriagebuilders.com. You're listening to Marriage Builders Radio, and we're so glad you are. I'm Joyce Harley, along with Dr. Bill Harley, the Answer Man. And we're still visiting with Karen on her email here for a friend. And just to review, her friend has just separated from her husband of 25 years because as she researched, she has determined her husband has a terrible addiction to pornography. We don't know any more background than that. May I add also they have 3 boys in high school and college. So that's going to be part of my questions on Karen's friend's behalf. First of all, what does she do now that she's separated? I want step by step. Does she communicate with him by phone? Does she meet with him? Does she only email with him? What are the first steps?
Well, I've written the article. I just left my spouse. Now what? And in that article, I talk about first of all, before you leave, write a letter that clearly explains what you're up against in the marriage.
Okay,
in this particular
she may
case.
have she's already
Right.
left. So she could always do that after the fact.
So then
This is why I have left.
Right. So the question really is, what are you leaving for? And if it is for physical abuse, then there should be no contact at all. In the case of infidelity, where the person's unwilling to leave the other spouse, there should be
other partner. You mean
other partner? There should be no contact at all. I call that Plan B, and you basically work through an intermediary to work things out. In her particular case, the pornography would be something that she should probably work through an intermediary for, because it is like infidelity. It would be similar to infidelity. And now the question is, well, how do you end Plan B and go into a communication with each other? Not necessarily getting back together, but at least communicating. And that would be that the person is, if it's physical abuse, they're in a program to overcome anger management program, and they are seeming to make progress. They seem to be getting a handle on the problem. Then I would say that there could be communication by phone, not necessarily getting together in person, but certainly by phone, to test whether or not the treatment is actually working. In other words, does this guy still get irritated when a certain topic is raised, or has he gotten a handle on his anger? In the case of pornography, the question would be, is he willing to completely not only eliminate his use of pornography, but allow her to hold him accountable by checking up on his smartphone and on his computer, or possibly even getting involved in a program for sexual addiction, where he would be held accountable by somebody else who is helping him with pornography.
But once again, she's talking directly with him.
Well, I would say if he does that, then she should talk directly with him.
So in the letter, she would say, we will not have communication on it until I hear from...
That you're willing to do what
else.
It takes to completely eliminate your use of pornography for the rest of your life. And the two things that I would recommend is that you let me view all of your history of the internet. Let me look at what you're viewing on your cell phone, and possibly getting you involved in a program to help men that are struggling with pornography.
It's really a trust issue, isn't it? And trust is so important in a relationship. And we hear this all the time when infidelity has entered a marriage. The betrayed spouse is constantly saying, how can I ever trust my husband or wife again? Mm-hmm. And, of course, in your book, Surviving an Affair, we say go through the book, and if you'll notice at the very end, the last chapter is trust. So Karen's friend is going to take some time for her to ever to be able to trust her husband again.
Yeah. And that's a big problem for a lot of people, and that is that if their spouse does something that failed to protect them, and it can be any of the love busters. We talk here about independent behavior, and infidelity is a form of independent behavior. Any form of love buster where you're not being protected, you lose the trust of the person. You say, I thought you would have protected me. You would feel that way about me.
Absolutely. And you know how I feel about this topic. And you didn't protect me from engaging. I mean, you
right.
engaged in it anyway.
That's right.
Yeah.
And the person that we need, protection from my perspective is protection against yourself. In other words, you're not likely to be hurt by a robber or somebody that attacks you on the street. You're likely to be hurt by me, your husband.
Well, that's the emotional hurt, yes.
Well, or even physical hurt. I mean,
true.
the basic feeling is that the person that you are most vulnerable to is the person that you're married to, and that person has to really raise the bar when it comes to what it takes to avoid hurting the other person. And, of course, pornography is one of the worst ways of violating that particular aspect of extraordinary care. And of course,
this has been talked about for years because we've been in this computer age for so long now. But it used to be that, pornography, you had to sneak into a certain kind of a building. You had to hide certain magazines. But now, a tap of a button, and it's in your car. It's wherever you want to be. It's out in the woods if you want to be in the woods with your phone. It's anywhere.
Right.
It's the availability
right.
of the scourge of pornography that is so sad.
It is.
So anyway, well, what would you recommend as far as reading goes?
Well, my article.
And then would you think Surviving an Affair would be appropriate?
Yeah, you're going to have to get back together again, essentially. It's harder to avoid pornography than it is to avoid a previous lover. In other words, basically, if you've had an affair with a person, you can move, you can quit your job, you can avoid being with that person. But pornography is everywhere, everywhere. And so to avoid pornography, you pretty well have to be held accountable for what you view on the internet.
Do you think it was a wise thing that she separated?
Yeah, I think so. And I would assume that she would have expressed that prior to separation.
What about, I forgot to ask about their older boys that are in high school and college. Should they know the story of why mother left?
I think it's a good illustration, a good example for her to say that I cannot tolerate my husband's use of pornography, and neither can a woman who is married to any of you. In other words, don't do this to the woman that you marry, because it's terribly hurtful and it's terribly, it's just wrong. Now, I'll be honest with you. Most people that are dating today, I would say most women that are dating today expect their boyfriends to be using pornography. And in order to maintain the relationship with that boyfriend, they want to give him the impression that it's not as big a deal to them as that. As a matter of fact, they even watch pornography along with the boyfriend. And when they first get married, they watch it together and so forth. And then down the road a bit, they start recognizing that this isn't something they want at all, and that this is similar to infidelity. And it's very, very important for a woman who is dating to let her boyfriend know right off the bat that I cannot tolerate.
Know your true feelings, so they share your true thoughts on that.
I cannot tolerate it. If you use it, our relationship cannot persist.
And once again, if this is an issue in your marriage, look up the articles on pornography. Just put it in the search engine on our website. We're going to take a break. We're going to continue answering your questions on the other side. Have you been to the forum? The marriagebuilders.com forum? It's a community where people come with their marriage problems and receive direction, support, and encouragement from those who have solved those problems in their own marriages. They did this by using Dr. Harley's Marriage Builders concepts. You can view the daily interaction without registering, but to join in the discussion, you need to register. If you have any questions about registering or anything else about the forum, the administrator will help you by email. Your identity is kept completely confidential, and there's no charge. Just about every marital problem imaginable has been addressed on the forum. So don't hesitate to describe your problem to those who can help. Whether your problems are simple or complicated, new, or have been going on for years, the Marriage Builders Forum can help you find solutions. Are you looking for direction, support, and encouragement in your marriage? Check out the Marriage Builders Forum. Well, let me remind you that you can send questions, comments, even topic ideas to mbradio@marriagebuilders.com. And if you'd like to consider joining us as a caller to discuss further your situation, include your phone number. No, it doesn't mean that we're going to call you on air. I'll contact you off air. We'll have a great conversation. I'll get even more information from you about your situation, but I'll explain what's involved being a caller. And let me tell you, nothing is involved other than we just being at the phone, and we'll call you. So that's mbradio@marriagebuilders.com. Well, David is writing us, and we seem to get more questions about love busters. It's kind of interesting. And now he is brief, but he sent his email, and his email says it all. Here's what he says. I hit my wife once when we were both drinking. She has now left me. What percentage of women come back? It only happened once.
Yeah, and it's an interesting issue. You know, if you hit your spouse once, what should you do? And I wrote an article called My Spouse Just Hit Me, Now What? And in that article, I recommend separation. Once. When you've been drinking, separate. Why? Because it is a very, very serious problem.
Well, let's take the drinking away. You hit your spouse once, no matter even if you're chewing gum. The point is, you leave. You know, drinking exacerbates the situation, right, and often will bring that emotion on. But many hits take place with no alcohol involved.
Right. So the question really is, what should this man do? I would say, first of all, he should never drink again the rest of his life. He's already demonstrated once that he is dangerous. He's a dangerous person when he drinks.
They were both drinking.
Yep. And I would say to him, you do not drink anymore. You know, if you're an alcoholic where you can't stop drinking, you check yourself into a treatment center and get the help you need to stop drinking. My attitude about drinking is, does it ever cause a problem? When you call a person a problem drinker, what do you mean by that? It means that drinking creates problems. Either he gets a DWI, gets arrested for that, or he gets into fights, or he says things he wish he hadn't said. Then he's a problem drinker, and a person like that shouldn't drink. Period. Now, if a person is not a problem, if they're not a problem while they drink, there are physical problems that you can have. I mean, you can lose neurons in your brain, and you can have a terrible liver. You can die at early age of alcohol poisoning. So there's all kinds of problems with drinking. In his particular case, he has to give it up entirely.
Okay, he made a comment here. It only happened once.
Yep, and it only needs to happen once. It's interesting how many people have that I've witnessed that have either killed their spouse or created a permanent injury just once. In other words, if you get so angry that you decide you're going to have to hit your spouse in order to get whatever it is off your chest, you are a dangerous person to be with, and your spouse has no business being with you. Now, the question often comes to me, and that is, what if my wife is the one hitting me? I would encourage the husband to get a divorce.
Not divorce, to leave.
I'm sorry, leave.
Yeah.
I would encourage the husband to leave for two reasons. Number one is that a wife can be just as dangerous as a husband, just as dangerous. Now, it's true that women are uncommonly involved in murder. Women don't commit murder nearly as often as men do. But in marriage, research has indicated that women are as likely to commit physical violence as men. And so the question really is, well, what about hospitalization? Well, a study that was done in Australia showed that just as many men are hospitalized as women because of domestic violence. So the basic feeling is that just because your wife hits you doesn't mean that that she's not going to hurt you. So I really feel that if anybody hits anybody, my spouse just hit me, now what? Get a separation. You need to get anger management. You need to be able to be assured that this person is not going to be a risk to you. And I go so far as to say that before you get back together again, you not only have to look at anger as a problem, but you have to look at demands and disrespect as a problem, because they're all part of a way in which people are abusive and controlling in marriage. And you got to get rid of the whole thing before you're safe with each other.
And we commend your wife, David, for leaving, because how many people have we worked with in the past where not only has the spouse hit them once, but twice, 3, 4. I mean, we're saying, get out of there, get out of there. And they all have their reasons why they want to stay. But the idea, one abuse, you get out of there. So we think your wife did the right thing for not only herself, but for you, David.
Right. And
because this is a good way to open up your eyes that you need to get help regarding this.
Sure. Physical violence tends to escalate. In other words, he's hit her once. What's the likelihood he's going to hit her again?
And I get the impression he doesn't want to do it again. So I think that he wrote us. I think that's great.
Right.
However, he did ask what percentage of women come back. So they had this altercation. She's out of there. It only happened once, however, he says. But will she come back? Well, it sounds like he wants her back.
Right.
So that's a good incentive, right?
Right. Yeah, I got an email from somebody recently who told me that what has happened is that his wife hits him and hits him and hits him, and they get into big fights, and he tries to resist, and he tries to get out of the situation. And the question he had for me is, should I get a divorce? And I would say certainly he should get a separation. Certainly he should have a separation. And whether or not they get a divorce would be entirely up to whether or not his wife gets the kind of help she needs to avoid being abusive.
Right. All right. Very good. So, David, I hope that helps. And always I say get back to us if you have any further questions. I do not have a mailing address, but would there be one of your books that would help David and his wife?
Well, yes. Love Busters.
Okay. So I'll
Angry
definitely.
Outburst
Right.
chapter,
Exactly.
right.
There you go. I wasn't thinking clearly. Yeah. Love Busters will send him a complimentary copy once I get his address. And that's just a good reminder when you do send us your emails. Include your mailing address. We do nothing else with it other than to send you a free book. Well, let's introduce Kathy's question here. It's still, well, let's see. Do we want to go to Love Busters? Or do we want to talk about making decisions together?
Let's talk about making decisions together.
Okay. We'll get Kathy another time. I mean, it's not that urgent, okay? Hillary is going to be our next one, and we'll introduce the idea and maybe even start talking, but maybe continue it on the other side. So what are we doing during this hour? Once again, we defined marriage. According to Marriage Builders, marriage is a relationship of mutual extraordinary care, where you make each other happy. In other words, you meet each other's emotional needs, where you avoid making each other unhappy, avoiding those love busters, and where you make all your decisions together. And that's the policy of joint agreement. So Hillary now is falling under that third point. She said, if there is no time to take a break when negotiations reach an impasse, that is, a decision must be made now, how do you constructively proceed and positively resolve? Like, Should we punish our children now or later for something he has done? So you get what her question is.
Sure, yeah. And I would say that the overarching rule is never do anything without an enthusiastic agreement unless the health and safety of somebody is at risk. Like, for example, if you're not sure that you can afford taking your children to the doctor for something, and one spouse says, I'm taking my kids anyway, I don't care how you feel, that would qualify for the exceptions. In other words, that if the health and safety of the child is at risk, then you violate the policy of joint agreement, and you give the child the help they need. There are very few situations where you really lose health or safety by not doing anything. Most situations, if you're in an impasse and you can't make and a decision has to be made right away, then the decision should be not to do anything. That's basically the rule.
I can think of something like at the airport. Even what route to take to go to the airport to get there faster. Mm-hmm. That has to be decided right now. Things like that do prop up, not on a real regular basis, but enough to know how to handle it.
It's really quite rare. I mean, let's take your example.
Okay.
For example, that basically we got to get to the airport, and both of us have different views of how to get there. I
say this way, you say that way.
And I could say, well, let's pull over to the side of the road and let's make a decision. And I would say to you, because we can't agree, let's pull over to the side of the road and come to an agreement. And you would say, no, we'll do it your way because we have to be there.
See, I brought up the illustration thinking in my mind, it's a time factor. And I would have a way that I think would be faster to get there, and you have a way you think would be faster to get there. But the point is, we're pressured by time to get to the airport in a certain amount of time. So pulling over to the road would not work.
Right.
And I didn't add that in my illustration. It's my problem. Yeah. So then what would you do?
Well, I would say, we can pull over to the side of the road.
No, we don't have time.
I know. Well, but the policy of joint agreement would say don't do anything until you've come to an agreement.
Well, that's what she says. So is there a time when you don't use it?
In a situation like that, I think with you and me anyway, whoever's doing the driving is going to decide who gets there in time.
And then we would discuss it afterwards.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be a terrible, if it's a violation at all, it wouldn't be a terrible violation.
And you better hope.
I will say this, that anything that is repeated, like if we go to the airport regularly and you and I are in a discussion about how to get there, we should sit down and come to an agreement on that in advance, knowing it's going to happen again.
All I know is you better hope that your way was faster. We got more to discuss on the other side, so stay with us for more Marriage Builders Radio. Have you been to marriagebuilders.com yet? Its purpose is to help you resolve your marital conflicts in a way that creates romantic love. If you both follow the advice this website provides, you'll solve your problems and be in love with each other in no time. If you're new to marriagebuilders.com, before you read anything else, you should take the tour. Click Site Tour on the home page, and you'll have a complete overview in a matter of minutes. Then go to Basic Concepts. That's because they provide the logical basis for all Dr. Harley's solutions to marital problems, and it's completely free of charge. If you only have a few minutes and you want a quick overview, read the first topic in that section called A Summary of Dr. Harley's Basic Concepts. Take in Dr. Harley's articles and Q&A columns, interact with others on the forum, and learn to become an expert in making your marriage the best it can be. That's marriagebuilders.com. Well, we're in our final moments of today's Marriage Builders Radio show, and so glad you could join us for this hour. Remember, we are here for you. So should you have a question, a comment, a concern, even a topic idea, make sure and email us, mbradio@marriagebuilders.com. This next question is, David is talking about the word love in marriage. Actually, sorry, Kevin is the one regarding the word love. And I notice in your definition of marriage, love doesn't come in to the definition.
No. What I use is one definition of love, which is extraordinary care. Love is it can be caring love or it can be romantic love. And as far as my definition of marriage, I use only the concept of caring love, a mutual caring love. Now, what happens when you engage in mutual caring love is you have romantic love as an outcome.
I see. Okay.
So basically, the emphasis, again, you might argue that I'm switching emphasis here in my whole approach, because in basic concepts, I start with the love bank. In other words, it's almost like romantic love is everything. But you see, the perspective that I have there is that if you have romantic love, you also have caring love. Caring love creates romantic love. But maybe what I should do is start with the concept of caring love first and explain that what that does when done correctly is it creates romantic love. I've often used the argument that romantic love is a litmus test of caring love.
Well, and that's what brings people to the altar in the first place,
right,
because they have had caring love take place in their dating.
They've experienced it, right?
Right? And so they say, I want this for the rest of my life.
Right.
This person is doing everything I am enjoying,
right,
and I want to be with this person the rest of my life. And our concern is after the I do's, the caring love tends to wane.
Yes.
And therefore, then the romantic love would tend to wane.
So if I am doing what it takes to meet your emotional needs, I'm making massive love bank deposits into my account in your love bank. If I am avoiding anything to hurt you, I'm not withdrawing those love units. And if we make all of our decisions together, then the lifestyle that we have chosen, the lifestyle itself, makes love bank deposits and avoids love bank withdrawals.
So Kevin's question, he said, regarding the word love, some authors of marriage books define love as not a feeling like being in love, but rather a commitment that drives the person toward real love. What is your opinion?
Well, if what real love is what they're talking about is romantic love, which they're not, I'll hasten to point that out, then I would agree. In other words, that if my commitment to you results in romantic love, you toward me, then we've got it all. We've got the commitment, we've got the caring love, and we have the romantic love, like you and I have. So that I would say that that's real love. Most people, though, that talk about true love or real love are basically talking about a sacrificial love, self-sacrificing. That I will do whatever it takes to make you happy, even makes me unhappy. I'm not in favor of that at all, because I think of the mutuality aspect of marriage. I can show sacrifice for those that I'm not in a relationship with because I care about them and there's no way they can return the favor. You and I can decide to sacrifice for others. We can make a decision to, for example, provide money for various charitable organizations where we're choosing to sacrifice for somebody else. That's okay. That's all right. But to sacrifice for each other, you lose the mutuality aspect of what I consider to be love. So in this particular case, true love, very often that is described in various books, is unilateral. It's unilateral. In other words, I'm going to care for you whether or not you care for me. Self-sacrificing love, unconditional love. All of that is unilateral love. What I want is a bilateral love. I'm looking for a bilateral, mutual agreement that we care for each other in extraordinary ways.
And of course, we've seen time and time again how sacrificing is unsustainable.
In marriage.
Mm-hmm. And after a while, the resentment builds, etc.
Yeah, I'm not against sacrifice. I'm against sacrifice in marriage.
All right, very good. Well, our time is gone, but we're so glad that you could join us for this hour, and we will do it again. And I encourage you to go to our website if you haven't gotten familiar with anything other than the homepage where you may be listening to this show right now. Then put in the topic that you're interested in regarding marriage, and articles will show up, and you'll have good reading ahead. I'm Joyce Harley with Dr. Bill Harley, and this is Marriage Builders Radio, building marriages to last a lifetime.